Okay, well, this is now going to have to be two different videos. I hit pause. I thought my phone would just stop where it was and I'd be able to continue. It probably would have if I didn't have to answer the phone. I apologize. Anyway, so here's what I was going to read. Again, this is an interview that was from IGN Film Force. I don't know who the interviewer was. It didn't really say that information, but it was with producer Gary Kurtz, and this was in November 2002. He says, Gary Kurtz said here, in any case, Unsworth said he was interested, and we proceeded with the idea that he was going to do the picture. The very last minute, he pulled out to do the Vincente Minnelli picture in Rome, A Matter of Time, a film I'm about to see. I understand it was not a good movie, but Minnelli's last film, and it's Jeffrey Unsworth. I love seeing his photography, which was really annoying. But that's the way the movie business works sometimes, because he had worked with Minnelli several times in the past. I think he's referring to the two times he worked with his daughter, Liza Minnelli, he photographed her film. He photographed her in the films Cabaret and Lucky Lady. So, because I've never seen Unsworth photograph a film for Minnelli, so I don't know if Kurtz is getting his back straight here. Because he had, which in the past, and he just felt that would probably be a better picture, I suppose. I spoke with him afterwards, and he was very apologetic about it. It's not something he normally did in his career, and I think he felt guilty to a certain extent. The picture was a lot more money for him, and he had a much bigger crew, and so in a way I don't blame him. If he had just said that he'd rather work with Minnelli, someone he'd worked with before, then also he didn't know whether he could handle science fiction that well, which of course he'd go on to photograph Superman, which granted did have quite a few additional photographers on it, but he was the main photographer, and most of the additional photography was based on his style. Then also he didn't know whether I read that. I would have been very happy to say, then go do it. We'll get someone else. But his agent made a big thing about. I know it's gonna be a third video. Okay, where was I? See, this is what I'd hoped to do with the other video. Then go get it. We'll get someone else. But his agent made a big thing about the fact that there was some kind of technical prior commitment, which was all bullshit. It wasn't. He didn't say anything to us directly about it until after the film was over. It was a bit annoying. I'm sorry. So yeah, that was, I found quite fascinating that Unsworth, but here's the reason why I bring it up, because it occurred to me. You look at the photography of Empire Strikes Back by Peter, now forgive me, I'm going to mispronounce his name here, Peter Suschitzes? I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. The photography looks a lot more, I hate to use the word mature looking, because I don't want to say that Gilbert Taylor's cinematography is immature or anything like that. But, let me put it this way. It looks a little more updated in terms of what type of film stock. It looks a little more polished, not so documentary looking. But again, I think that was suitable for Star Wars because of its Flash Gordon type atmosphere. Empire, the story has matured a little bit more. It's darker, so this kind of more polished look, smoother cinematography with some diffusion was a lot more appropriate. And Unsworth was known for his use of diffusion, kind of a light flare. So that was kind of a typical thing of English cinematographers of the time. When you look at a lot of films that were done in England in the 70s, they tend to have that diffusion tend to be very smoky is probably not the right word. Hazy. Maybe there's like a haze, as if they're kind of photographing through a filter or something. And then again, not even all films even just made in England. Vilmos Zsigmond was notable for having that lovely cinematography with the light flares and some diffusion, some brilliant angles, especially if he's using a Panavision film, such as in The Deer Hunter or the Obsession, or even Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So that it could be that Peter was following the kind of cinematography from most style that was more popular of the time. or they felt that it was suitable. I haven't unfortunately seen many features about the making of Empire, of why they filmed it like that. But it helps the film, and that's probably what Star Wars would have looked like if Unsworth had originally photographed it. So, yeah, I already mentioned that. So anyway, yeah, Empire, because of its dark subject matter, its more mature performances, more mature writing, had a more appropriate cinematographic style. Now, leading up to the events of the, or leading up to the filming of Empire, this is a delicate subject for many of the actors and creators of, and of course the creator of Star Wars. Who would have thought that after, I mean, first you have Star Wars, but who would have thought that before the holidays. I'm sorry. I saw the brilliant documentary about the holiday special, what led up to its creation. And, no, I found out a lot of things I was not aware of, and it's a fascinating documentary, by the way. Look at The Serpents and the Force. For me, the only real boring moment was discussing the music video with that music group, that weird Empire guy soldier watches on that box-like TV. And it evidently had a lot more of George Lucas' involvement than he's willing to admit probably now, though he's done many times in other interviews. But it's so amazing that Empire Strikes Back became a big thing at all after something that is terrible. Okay, I just have to say, I was never going to watch a holiday special, but I wanted to watch that documentary, and I was finally getting my hands on it for renting, and I'm thinking, I probably would appreciate this documentary a lot more if I just looked at this monstrosity. And I sat through it. Other than some moments of major cringe, I think I was able to put up with it a lot better than what I would later think of the Star Wars prequels, which I'm ashamed to say. Yeah, I know you're all probably gonna say, "What's to be ashamed of?" And especially for those who love it. But I was all hype about the prequels. When they came out, I was 14 years old when the first one came out. And getting to see a Star Wars film in theaters, getting to, hearing all the stories about Lucas trying to get the prequel off the ground. And then, of course, I had the hots for Natalie Portman. Forgive me, Natalie, in case you received all my annoying fan letters, which I'm really hoping you didn't. But let's just say I was dreadful. Thank God they were only fan letters. Thank God I was only a teenager. But you'll see this video. But anyway, if you do, by whatever miracle, or by whatever, yeah, forgive me. Anyway. So yeah, that was probably the only reason I cared anything about the sequel prequels, was because of Natalie Portman. As I got older, I couldn't bear it. Anyway, point is, I'm going off topic here. That's another story. The holiday special, I think, was easier to bear than those prequels. So, yeah, I'm just always amazed at. But then again, that one thing they even show before the holiday special, there was already these kind of Star Wars parodies or Star Wars homages out there. I've yet to see not Megaforce, good God. Hardware Wars, I've yet to see that. I want to see that. But I know there was this big dance thing on this TV show, and they mentioned this in the documentary, with Kris Kristofferson, which I found interesting, because if he had portrayed Han Solo, I think he could have done a good job. I've seen Kris Kristofferson. I think he's a really good actor. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, just how I guess it continued on from that. Well, now that we passed that, that just had to be mentioned because it was preceding Empire Strikes Back, and so Empire Strikes Back. We have. I know there's one thing that always stands out to me and that's the look of the Millennium Falcon's cockpit. It to me seems a lot less. Okay, it was never colorful to begin with. It didn't splash of color, but to me there still was a little bit of color there because you had a green light. I remember in the rear of the cabin. Um, there weren't as many lights for that matter too. So you had the color from the actors' costumes, and just to me it seemed a little less harsh on the eyes. Then we get our first glimpse of it when Han comes in because they're rushing out of there, and he turns the switch onto the cockpit, and all these awful, awful red lights flash on. Of course, flick off. Then he punches it to get it back on again, and it just looks terrible. I mean, all these unnecessary lights. I feel there were too many. I don't know how different the cockpit, if there was any modifications in its design. I know it looked a little bit bigger. Not compared, not bigger in the sense of how the cardboard copy of the Falcon cockpit in the holiday special, but I meant in regards to the first Star Wars film. It seemed some ways a little bit bigger. So I have a feeling they may have modified it. Again, forgive me, I might be wrong, because I know Norman Reynolds took over as production designer since sadly Jonathan Barry died prematurely, in his mid-40s, I think from a heart attack. But thankfully Norman Reynolds was on board Star Wars as his art director. Him and a few, and I have their names here. Yeah, Norman Reynolds, Leslie Dilley, and Roger Christian. Yeah, they were on board the first Star Wars film, and Leslie Dilley came back as his art director, and then we also got on board Harry Lane, Alan Tompkins, and Michael Ford. Harry Lane, I think I saw his name as one of the main production designers in 2001, and he would also be the production designer of the wonderful Great Muppet Caper. Yes, I am being serious when I say that. I think Great Muppet Caper is the best Muppet film out there. I'm frankly shocked to see how much it's criticized, but you can see some Star Wars type sets when they open up the safe near the end of the movie to get to the big baseball diamond or whatever it's called. And I think they probably borrowed that from The Empire Strikes Back. Sorry, I got a glimpse of my hairy thigh there. The Empire Strikes Back, because both films were shot at Elstree Studios. Anyway, and only a year apart. Anyway, yeah, all I can guess is that aside from the lights, which are clearly a Norman Reynolds, inclusion, the set looked in some ways a little more. It seemed like it had some more lines and kind of lines in the sense of I don't know how you want to what you want to call it. Just all I see when I see the cockpit in Empire is just these kind of very angular lines, which I don't recall seeing in the first Star Wars film. So yeah, I think there were some modifications, but other than that, the rest of the film carries a style that Jonathan Barry brought to Star Wars brilliantly, and I absolutely love it. When I first saw the film, I believe I mentioned this in my first video. It was after I Return of the Jedi, like I said, was the very, very first Star Wars film I'd seen. Then finally, when that Star Wars trilogy set came out, the video set, I got to see Star Wars for the first time. And then I finally watched Empire Strikes Back. Actually, because what happened was they sold them separately, and my sister got Star Wars. Eventually, I got the whole trilogy set, and I had already seen Star Wars millions of times at that point. So I'm going, I want to watch Empire Strikes Back. I'd never seen that one yet. So I just remember the constant bickering after Luke is knocked off his Tauntaun or Tom. I'm not sure. After he's knocked off, it just seems like everyone's arguing about everything. First thing you come in after Han Solo gets back is Chewie yelling at him, just demanding his help on the Falcon. Leia mad that he's leaving because of he wants to pay off Jabba the Hutt, or either, and then R2 and 3PO bickering about some sort of how cold it is. It just seemed as if I was absorbed. I was like going, gosh, what's everyone so mad about? I mean, I could see why they were mad, but it's just everything seemed to be a problem. And then later in the film, after Luke is rescued from Han and he's brought back, and Leia comes in, and there's this kind of mocking behavior from Han, just because he has to stay now because he can't leave because of the Empire coming to the planet. And anyway, he's trying to kind of use his charm to win I don't. Well, okay, you know what? He wasn't even trying to win over Leia, but he's acting like that. She showed her true feelings for him. She goes, "You stuck up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerve herder," and then she kisses Luke to just make him jealous or something. Now, understand something. Yes, I did see Return of the Jedi, but I was very, very little prior to this film, and I hadn't watched it in years. I think I had it rented at one time. Yeah, I did. Oh my gosh, I just remember that. That was stupid. That was so stupid of me. We owned the Star Wars film, and I remember we went to a Thriftway, and Mom was letting us rent a movie. And for some reason, I got the impression that Return of the Jedi was after Star Wars. And so we rent that. I'm thinking, okay, we'll watch Star Wars. And I remember my sister, I think, was kind of irritated. We hadn't seen Return of the Jedi or Empire Strikes Back. So at that point, that was probably the first time I really watched it from beginning to end. I must have totally missed over the sister angle between Luke and Leia. Because when I finally did see Empire, I didn't question that kiss between the two of them. And, I didn't think anything unusual about it, which just so, because there was no introduction of them being siblings at the time. Even behind the scenes, Lucas hadn't written that yet. There was, I remember even later years, listening to a commentary or interview, I don't remember where, about how that was, didn't you think it odd that Luke and Leia kissed during that moment if they were siblings? And he's like, no, just kind of finding a normal reason for them to be doing something like that. I wish I could remember, but so yeah, I find that odd. Now that I remember, I had watched Return of the Jedi, but it probably because of the length of time, it was so long, I entirely forgot. So then later, when I did watch Return of the Jedi, I got to tell you, see, I haven't really talked about myself yet because I've been kind of waiting for these videos to be seen by a few more people. And this still happens to me today. I have no clue if I've been diagnosed. I have no clue if I have ADD or ADHD or some other sort of learning issue. It takes a long time, not as long as it has in the past, but it sometimes takes a long time for something to process in my head. For me, like, oh, is that what that meant the whole time? Something like that. Like, here's a good example, but then again, probably anyone, this was understandable because of how little this drink was known. For the film Back to the Future, that wonderful moment in the diner, before he meets his dad, he's asking for a Pepsi, a tab, that's what he asked. He asked for a tab. My impression was like, what's the owner's name? I don't remember the owner's name. But when he goes, tab, I can't give you a tab unless you order something. See, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking like him, he needs a tab. And it's funny too, because by this point, by the time, the last few times I watch it, I was having tab quite a lot. I loved tab. I miss tab. Okay. Coke Zero is probably the closest thing to taste like it, but I still miss it. Even though I used to have a thing for sugar-free Cokes, because I did the whole... what is that stuff that's inside sugar-free Cokes and Diet Cokes? I've already forgotten the name of it. People say something about it could be a big cause of cancer, but it's kind of iffy. I'm not sure. But yeah, whatever this stuff is. But so yeah, I was familiar with tab by this point watching this film numerous times, and then he asks for, okay, well, give me a Pepsi free. Now that I knew he was talking about course, I later found out that that wasn't true. I thought he was talking about a Diet Pepsi. But I looked that up. I looked Pepsi Freeze and Diet Pepsi actually were separate things before Diet Pepsi just took it over completely. And then, he gets, something without any sugar and he gets a coffee. The Tab joke took me so long to understand. He was asking for a sugar-free drink. That was why. I did not know, actually, Tab was sugar-free. Until one day I looked it up and I see that it doesn't say anything about sugar. I'm going, no, because I don't like drinking I never, I don't take sweet low. I don't take equal. But again, now I've kind of, I take it off and on the Coke Zero products or Pepsi Zero. So I'm not as iffy about it. But point is, back then I was just, but so when he said Tab and I didn't get, he was asking, and then he said something without sugar for the coffee. It finally clicked. I'm going, he was asking for the drink Tab, but the Tab wasn't around in 1955. So this whole business of Luke and Leia kissing, and despite the fact I had seen Return of the Jedi before I saw them kiss for this one time, it just never registered. And then, of course, Yoda being introduced in Empire Strikes Back. I was used to seeing him old and dying and slow talking in Return of the Jedi. So seeing him very playful, very moving a little bit faster and sounding more like Grover or Fozzie Bear or something was honestly, actually, I don't remember. I think it was definitely a little bit of a surprise. I knew who played him at that point. I knew very well what his voice was like. But I guess I didn't expect him to be so playful. So that was I had got a big kick out of that. And I still love it. In fact, actually, that's one thing I wanted to mention. I forgot to put that in my notes, but I remembered. I think that was one of the bravest moves that a film of that nature could have done. The fact that they had Yoda there, that could have laughed people right out of the theater or taken them out of the context or just anything. That was a very brave and bold move of the filmmakers to have a puppet. People might call it a Muppet just because it's from Frank Oz, but it's a puppet. Muppets are their own thing. And it's all a tribute to his design, the writing for him, Frank Oz's brilliant performance, how he can be silly with them, but then also very mystical and wise and critical, especially after all those playful moments. And after he's decided to work with Luke, teach him the Force. That brilliant, brilliant, brilliant scene when he's just telling Luke, those are not you, forgive me. And just, his sternness, his strictness, and just especially when his eyes are just like going, no different, only different in your mind. Just the manipulation of his eyes, his eyelids, his face, especially after, he makes the X-Wing get, out of the water, and just brilliant, brilliant sequence. And just, you can see the effort and just how hard that was for him afterwards. Even though he didn't let it show, just like, just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So, I just can't say enough. I can't say enough about that. And then okay, good. I put that right after Yoda because I wanted to mention this, but I thought you gotta wait. John Williams music. I know I said kind of very few things about him, but which was good. But to me, I think this was the one he should have won his Oscar for. The melodies, the fuller sound in the orchestra, the intensity of it. And when I finally got my hands on by the time I was becoming interested in the soundtracks of the film, listening to his music during the Hoth battle sequence, and then especially the whole, what is the name of that cloud planet? Oh. Bespin. Yeah, the whole Bespin sequence when Luke is, sneaking through the city, and everything just leading up to his battle with Darth Vader, and then the escape from the city, or even after his injury, all those cues. And of course, there was a lot of music that wasn't used during the first moments of Vader and Luke's fight. Especially a brilliant moment where I don't know. When you see it in the film does very well without any music during that sequence. And I'm not saying it probably would have done better if it did have the music. I think it would have done really, really good. But at the same time, all the music that you don't hear there, that you hear on the soundtrack album, especially the use of Yoda's theme when he clearly, uses the Force to just fly out of the freezing chamber, and you hear Yoda's theme just playing triumphantly in the music, and that's clearly during that moment where he jumps out of there. I would have loved to have heard that in the film. That is yet they decide to go without probably because of the sound effects. Sound effects were pretty intimidating there, and I guess either they thought the music wasn't needed, or they were worried that the sound effects would drown out the music, and they very well could have. So it would have been effective. And and it's funny too. I remember when they sold a toy in later years, and it was a sequence where Luke was thrown out that big round window. When that toy was sold, and I saw the commercial for that, I'd never seen Empire Strikes Back. So when I finally did see the film, everything looked familiar to me. Where Luke just flies out that window, and I'm going, I feel like I've seen this before. And then I remember the toy, and I think again, just like a moment of clarity, just going, oh, so that wasn't invented. It was actually from one of the films. Just so much was spoiled for me for that film, including the famous "No, I am your father." Not Luke, I am your father, for all those Mandela effect people out there that I was part of for one time because I didn't know the actual line, but "No, I am your father." So, yeah, that one was even spoiled for me because I had seen Return of the Jedi. And of course, Tommy Boy, that loves a parrot, that had that moment with Chris Farley talking into the fan. But I went off topic. So John Williams music, yeah, just so much music that you can't really hear in the film that was taken out too. And I absolutely love the cue, and it is in the film too, thank heaven. But you kind of barely hear it because of the sound. But that marvelous fanfare that Williams does when Luke, he's underneath the AT-AT walker, and he opens up this hatch, and you hear this fanfare in the music, and it's one of my favorite moments to listen to. I know in the Symphonic Suite album, he adds a repeat of the fanfare in there, which was okay, but I didn't find it necessary. But that was Williams' choice to do that. It kind of extended a bit. There is going to be a video where I want to discuss release of the soundtracks and certain re-recordings that were also released around the time, but that's another time. And then, of course, Yoda's theme was introduced in this film, and I don't think you hear it. Okay, what I was here. Let me say what I was going to say. Just the best. Sure, you hear it in Return of the Jedi, but it's kind of, it doesn't get to play in full, and it doesn't get to have a huge orchestra because it's being played very quietly because Yoda's dying. In this film, it's just, I love the use of Yoda's theme. I love Yoda's theme. In fact, actually, this is funny. When I saw the film, Talk of the Town, George Stevens' Talk of the Town. The music score in that film was by Frederick Stafford? I don't want to have to get a book, but I believe it's Frederick Stafford. And there's a theme in that film. If you listen to it, it's Yoda's theme entirely. Maybe just a few notes are different to the beginning phrase, but the second phrase of the theme, it sounds so much like Yoda's theme. Now, I don't know if Williams had heard the score or not to Talk of the Town, which, by the way, see Talk of the Town, brilliant movie. Yeah, I don't know if he'd heard the score or not, but it cracks me up when I think about it. Anyway, but yeah, I absolutely love Yoda's theme in the film, Now, of course, the Imperial March, I was already well familiar by that because it was always playing on commercials and everywhere. Um, I don't know if I was surprised that it wasn't used in the original Star Wars. Star Wars was just like ba 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 ba, every time they showed the Star Destroyers. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't really think about that at the time. I think when I saw Star Wars, I probably assumed that was in there. But anyway, I was way familiar with that theme. The love theme, I don't know if I had heard much of because I know you don't hear too much of Return of the Jedi. And seeing how little I remembered of Return of the Jedi, I probably didn't remember it. So yeah, I think that's all the major themes I could think of. And I love the music from when they're flying to Bespin. They're being escorted by those ships, um, and just very surreal, very strange, ethereal even. But the best part, I remember I could barely hear it when I saw the film, but I wasn't sure if I was hearing what I was hearing, and the soundtrack liner notes confirmed it. But still, they're mixed down so low. It drives me crazy when they finally just focus on the ships flying to Bespin. Is Bespin the planet or is it the name of the city? When they finally just there's no dialogue. They're just showing them flying to the city, and you hear these kind of faint vocals, female voices in the background. I thought it was the sound effects that I was hearing when I first saw the film, but then the liner notes for the 1997 or 98 release, the RCA. I have to get it again. They were the first, release of the two soundtracks before Disney re-released them or before Sony re-released them. Whoever re-released them in later years. They're mixed up quite a bit, even more so than the 1993 soundtrack release trilogy set, which they're still kind of mixed slow. You can't hear them. The first time when the score was completely released, you can hear them beautifully. I just wish there was more of them. I love that. I love hearing them as part of the music, and they're so minimal. But what I was going to say about Yoda's theme, that you don't that like this is the best film you hear, or this is a film where you hear its best usage. I wanted to just take a I wanted to digress for a moment because I know I wasn't going to do this, but I can't help it. I have to. In the film E.T., Williams geniusly has his music make a cameo. Has music for Yoda make a cameo when you see, and even more ingenious, just as ingeniously, a kid in a wonderful Yoda costume. It might as well be the puppet actually, walking regularly than rather with help from Frank Oz. God, they could make costumes good back in those days. And the brilliant use of Yoda's. I'm laughing because I'm just picturing E.T. just go, oh. And, of course, the kid is Yoda because he can't change the expression on Yoda's face, just stares and just turns his head, I'm just trying to see Yoda's face in there rather than the kid, and imagining the kid's reaction behind the mask. I'm just thinking of Yoda just... just the genius use of Yoda's theme during that moment. And what's odd is that as the scene progresses during that scene, when Michael's telling Elliot, reminding him of his mother's warning to be back 1 hour after sundown, no later, William still continues Yoda's theme in a way, up until the transition from when he's, they're putting E.T. in the basket to when Elliot's riding in the forest. So it seemed a little more than a cameo there. It almost makes you think that the two films... Now, I know there have been some people who suggested that E.T. and Yoda are kind of from some sort of the same planet or part of the same family. I frankly don't go with that. Yet, at the same time, I kind of find it hard to deny now. Because E.T.'s powers are very much like the Force in a way. Making things float. They kind of feel... I don't know if emotion's involved with the Force, but I don't think you can predict the future and everything like the Force. I don't think E.T.'s powers can do that, but it's there are some similarities there. Though looks wise and everything, Maybe except for the eye. No, not even with the eyes. I don't. That's why I don't really put them in the same kind of family, but in the same universe. Let's put it that way. So anyway, and I just had to mention that brilliant use of Yoda's theme in ET. Vader, yes, I did want to mention this. I appreciate what they did with Vader with a James Earl Jones vocal performance, because I felt that sometimes he got a little over the top, and that was probably more George Lucas doing with the script. They made him more subtle, much more sinister. Even his voice just was a lot heavier. And whether that was James Earl Jones himself or the manipulation they did to his voice, I don't know. And yeah, Vader, I think, is so much more of a threat in this film, in Empire Strikes Back, than he is in Star Wars. Sorry, I'm trying to find. I should have left this open. Let's see if it's there. Yes, I was right. Okay, I wanted to bring this up too. In this film, we also meet the Emperor for the first time. Now, I feel so sad for those who have had to grow up with these pieces of garbage special editions that are out there. Now, the only ways to see the film, unless you were fortunate enough to either get a VHS of the original prints, I was right the first time, or even better, somewhat. No, even better. The limited edition re-releases on DVD of the original series. Though unfortunately they're paired with the special edition. Not the original special editions. Yeah, there's more than one. It's so stupid. But probably like the re-release special editions or something where they put Hayden Christensen and some other stuff from the prequels into the special editions. But yeah, I feel bad for those who have not seen the original at all. Because when I found out, when I reluctantly probably looked at the special edition, reluctantly, because my wife sometimes prefers it, but I think she does now. And I saw, and I don't know if I knew it before. No, I had seen it long before that. That's right. I remember seeing it on VHS and not long after it came out. And they put Ian McDiarmid's image, and they reshot it, changed some of the dialogue from when you see him in the hologram. And I don't care how grotesque and creepy looking the makeup is, it sucks. It absolutely sucks. The original image, performance, vocally and physically, that you see in the original Empire Strikes Back, to me is so much more creepy, unsettling, because you've got different elements here. First of all, and I forget where I found this out. It may have been from this disc of the Star Wars trilogy, the making of it. I don't remember, but it was an actress who portrayed the Emperor, with makeup on and then the cloak. But the eyes, of course, and I think most people know this, are from a chimpanzee, the glowing yellow eyes. The vocal performance is by Clive Revill, who I have seen in 3 movies. And he's also known as performing. Oh my God, what is his name? What is that guy's name in Oliver Twist? Who looks after the kids? Fagin. Yeah, on stage he was the original Fagin for the musical Oliver. I only saw the film with Ron Moody, who I thought was really good. But anyway, still, I've seen Clive Revill. If you have ever seen The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, he's, I can't even pronounce his name. He plays a Russian who's kind of supervising the demands of the ballerina in the film. And he's also in the film Avanti, the Billy Wilder film. He's kind of like the person who seems to kind of fix all the problems that occur in that movie. And then the only other thing I remember seeing him in was, which also has production design by John Barry, as a matter of fact, Jonathan Barry, The Little Prince. In that film, he plays the businessman. You get a great look at his hairy nostrils, and because of this fisheye lens, and a marvelous performance, but I could do without the hairy nostrils. And yeah, he's the businessman, just completely crazy. He gets these wonderful kind of creepy shots of his eye, just kind of look up like this or something. And don't worry, I'm not going to let you see my nostrils. Because yeah, it's like they shoot it through a fisheye lens. The image is very, very tiny. It's black on all sides, and it's like a sphere. Um, but I think it's because of the planet that scene happens on so small. Yeah, see that film. That's another one I got to talk about. Brilliant voice work. He keeps it minimal, and it just to me sounds so much creepy with the face and everything. So that always irritates me that they change that. You know what? I think I gave my opinion more than I thought I was going to. You clearly. No, I did. I said that. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah, I said I think it's the best one of the Star Wars trilogy. So I guess that's all. That's as far as my notes go. I guess that's really all I have to say. The video's gone a lot longer than I thought it would. And unfortunately, because it's not just 40 minutes, I've got the 6-minute part, which it does need to be add on. Maybe I can try and edit it in. I'll have to figure that out. But, oh, I'm not looking forward to giving my opinion of Return of the Jedi. I mean, okay, photographically and special effects wise, sure, it frankly succeeds, exceeds, excuse me, on that level more than Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. That's about it. For you perverts out there who love Carrie Fisher in that bikini, that for them it exceeds more than that. But yeah, frankly, that moment never did anything for me. Anyway, yeah, I'm not looking forward to talk about Return of the Jedi. It's my least favorite. It falls only slightly higher than the prequels. Anyway, I don't know why I breathe like that. Yeah, that's all I have. I will want to do another video sometime, though, too. I'm debating whether or not I'll do it before Return of the Jedi, because I know I would like to discuss the different soundtrack releases. I really would have loved to mention some of that here. And because there's just a lot to be said about the soundtracks. Yeah, I'm going to stop. I think right now I'm just making excuses. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope it was a little better prepared for you guys out there. I did not prepare, unfortunately, the list of people whose names I couldn't remember, some YouTube subscribers or YouTube channels that I'm subscribed to, or YouTubers I'm subscribed to, other than the ones I already mentioned. And this is for you, James. For those of there are many. There are those I'd love to mention those YouTubers out there, but they will remain nameless. I didn't pull that off very well. I think James is going to kill me, and I will talk to you guys again soon. Bye.